Welcome everybody to my pre-academy video on a paper that I will present. The title of my paper will be Intra-organizational Coopetition as a source of new to the world innovation, and I'm doing this paper together with Jijing Zhu. What I'm going to do in my video is to give you some background on the research. So I will first talk about coopetition research. And then in the second step, I want to speak about new to the world innovations in China, because this is the empirical context of our study. If you go to traditional economic theory, there is a strong sense that within markets, what you have is competition among rival firms. From the point of view of economic theory, ideally you have many, many different firms and they're competing very fiercely because that is socially optimal for society and for consumers. And in traditional economic theory, there's a contrast made between markets where firms compete and firms themselves. And the idea is within firms, there is an administrative hierarchy of control. And within firms, individual human beings cooperate in order to bring about the best product or service. So cooperation within firms and competition within markets. And one example of an economist who articulated this view is Oliver Williamson's famous book, Markets and Hierarchies, that sets forth that distinction. About 20 years later, Brandenburg and Nailboff presented a theory which they called coopetition. And essentially, they argued from a strategic point of view, it actually makes also sense for firms not only to compete, but actually to cooperate with one another. And especially in the field of strategic management, there has been a lot of research on interfirm coopetition. I call it interfirm coopetition because in a moment I will use the term intrafirm coopetition. There is a much smaller literature on intrafirm coopetition. It means coopetition within individual firms. And I've listed here the most important pieces. There are actually not that many more than the ones I'm citing here. For me, the person who has written the most cogently about this is actually Birkinshaw and his colleagues. There are also other scholars in international business who have looked at coopetition among distinct country units within a multinational corporation. And if you read the literature, it becomes quite clear that there is quite a bit of competition within firms. And I tried to symbolize this here with the second diagram, where you see actually different teams or different units also struggling, trying to pull in direction like they want to win. This is not just a corporation. That if you do this, if firms do this, top management needs to carefully manage the conflicts that invariably arise from having two units compete with one another in the same firm. Our study builds on the existing intra-firm coopetition research and analyzes a new context and a new phenomenon. The new context is a Chinese internet giant that all of you have been to China, you will know it. It's Tencent. And I will speak in the second part of my background information in more detail why we chose Tencent for this study. So now I want to move on to giving you some context about why is China this focus of the study, and what is the idea of China new to the world innovations. So the first thing I want to quickly point out to you is that China currently has almost 20% of global GDP. So it accounts for 1/5 of the entire global economy. And I've long been interested since about 2012 in the question under what circumstances will a Chinese firm create a news to the world innovation? And I've written extensively about this. So I did together with Ari Lewin and Martin Kenny, a book on China's innovation challenge, and recently completed a book on Huawei and the transformation of Huawei. I today want to focus on one other company and to just give you a sense of why new to the world innovation is so crucial for China. Here is an interesting statistic on the iPhone in 2012. If you look at how much value was captured by Apple, you see Apple gets about 58% of the cost of an iPhone. And Foxconn, which is making iPhones in China, is only getting 1.8%. So from the point of view of China, you want to have more Apples in China and fewer Foxconns if you want to improve the GDP per capita of the Chinese economy. Chinese companies have been seen as widely imitated. And to give you one example that this imitation is actually true, here is Steve Jobs presenting an Apple new product. And he said at the end often one more thing, then he introduced the iPhone. The Chinese smartphone maker Xiaomi imitated completely how Steve Jobs would give a presentation. To give you one example of how imitative Chinese firms have been in the past. And so our question in the study is, how can Chinese firms move from imitation to innovation? How can they do new to the world innovations? And the OECD and Eurostat distinguish between a degree of novelty. And the smallest degree of novelty is when a firm does a new product that exists in other firms. So this would be new to the firm. Then oftentimes Chinese companies imitate a Western product that would be new to the firm, would also be new to China. But as this example of the Steve Jobs video just shows, it would not be a new to the world presentation that was just given. New to the world innovations in China are actually very, very hard to find. And this is what we are trying to do in this study. We're trying to focus on new to the world innovations in China. There's little existing theory that allows us to predict under what circumstances new to the world innovations would emerge in China. And so our aim is to explore where, when, and how China creates new to the world innovations. This exploratory research is a comparative historical case study. We looked at many, many candidates, but when we looked at companies which we were told are very innovative, it turned out that none of them were really a new to the world innovation. We only could verify a new to the world innovation in the case of WeChat that you see here next to the WhatsApp. WeChat is a rival of WhatsApp. In China, it is completely dominant. In China, there were a lot of Western rivals in Chinese startups, and WeChat came to dominate the Chinese market, as I'm showing you in this. So this is graphically trying to give you a sense of the market share. You see WhatsApp on the right has a very, very tiny market share. On the right side, you see WeChat and QQ. And interestingly enough, they are both made by the same company, Tencent. This is why we look at Cooppetition. Within the company, there are rival products and rival teams developing these products, and they dominate the market. And the crucial step for this research was to really confirm that WeChat had new to the world features. And this was a lot of effort. So we looked at all of the instant messaging products that were existing in the world, and we verified there were new to the world features. You see. Okay, and so much for the background. I wanted to whet your appetite for coming to our actual presentation, which will be live on August 2nd at 5 p.m. And we will then dive into how did Tencent come about with a new to world innovation by bringing about co-opetition or competition plus cooperation within the firm. And we have very nuanced findings how this competition changed over time as the company tried to continue to dominate the market. So see you all at the Academy.